Usually I do a lot more planning for my book reviews, but for today I decided to just go for it. Hey guys, today I will be reviewing A Crack in Everything by Ruth Frances Long. This is a fantasy story about a girl called Izzy who one day, while walking through Dublin city centre on her way to a gig, stumbles into Dublin, the fairy realm that is the darker side of Dublin. There she discovers that most of the myths and legends from Irish folklore and mythology are actually real. Everything from banshees to fairies, both good and bad, are all real. When she finds herself accidentally in possession of something that the most dangerous of the fairy folk want, she goes on an escape adventure type journey. It was really cool and fun to see a book set in Dublin City with street names and places that I'm really familiar with. It was kind of cool to kind of see it in that way. I'm going to jump right in and say that I loved that there was a load of Irish folklore and mythology in this, and it was fun to see Irish words in a book. There's a pronunciation guide in the back for all the Irish words that are used throughout it, and I realised that I was pronouncing a lot of things wrong. Now I don't know if I was or not, or if it's just maybe they simplified the pronunciation guide to make it more accessible, because from what I remember in school we would pronounce this word she'd, right, like that. But in the pronunciation guide it's she. I don't know if I've been saying it wrong this whole time or if they just simplified the pronunciation guide. If you speak Irish, let me know. I had a couple of issues with this book, nothing huge, but one of the main problems, we'll say, that I had was that the plot of the book rang very similar to that of The Mortal Instruments. If you put The Mortal Instruments in Dublin City Centre, you'd probably get this. While I love The Mortal Instruments, it's one of those series that, you kind of grow up with, I didn't know if this book just read like an Irish knockoff. That sounds kind of harsh, but that a lot of the plot points were really similar, and a couple of ways that the writing was done that I was kind of oh, that's kind of annoying. Overall though, I did quite enjoy this book. There were a couple of characters that I wasn't sold on, but again, more on that in my spoiler section. I think I gave this book 3 stars out of 5. A low 3. That doesn't sound like I enjoyed it all that much, but it was okay. It was an okay book that I liked reading, and I'm continuing with the series. There you have my non-spoiler section for this review, and if you want to hear my more detailed thoughts on any of these, then stick around for the spoilers, which are coming in 3, 2, 1, spoiler. Okay, so spoilers. Also, I'm going to be talking about The Mortal Instruments as a series in general, so just be wary of that. When I say the plot of this is quite similar to The Mortal Instruments, I'm talking in terms of the plot, but also in terms of the characters, right up to Izzy Gregory, the main character, who has bright curly red hair, and the main heartthrob guy, Jinx, has these tattoos that have magical significance. There was a lot of points in the plot as well as in the characters that I was just kind of that's very Mortal Instruments-y, and it just irked me just a little bit because I'd wanted it to be its own thing so much. Another point that was similar to The Mortal Instruments was Izzy's father, who was the protector type race, the Gregory, very Shadowhunters-esque, was, taken out and put in a coma for the majority of the thing, and then they had to try and find a cup to heal him, and it just read very much like City of Bones, and I couldn't get over it. If you've read this book and you thought the same kind of thing, let me know so that I know I'm not alone in that. Another thing I wanted to point out about the writing was the fact that the author used a repeating technique a lot. They knew that. They knew that. Or something she wished with all her might. Where the author would try emphasize something by repeating it. Now this stuck out to me because it's something that I noticed in my own writing, but seeing it in written format, I realized that it's an irritating technique. It was an irritating technique. A couple of other things in this book, it felt at points I was slightly confused, part of a description had just been cut but hadn't been replaced somewhere else, and I was kind of just how did we get from here to here? How did we develop this? I don't remember that happening. There were also points in the book, early on, where Izzy and Jinx's relationship is called into question by Izzy herself, and you're Izzy, you literally just met this guy in an alley a few minutes ago. He doesn't owe you anything. Why are you oh, I can definitely trust him. Why can't I trust him? It's because you met him in an alley a few minutes ago. Calm down. It was things like that, but it read like you were supposed to trust him. And I don't know if it was just that their relationship was too rushed, so you're supposed to trust them together too quickly, but it felt very pushed. It felt very forced, and I didn't appreciate that. I feel like I've talked a lot about what annoyed me, And that might just be because I'm being particularly picky these last few months of the year with the books that I've been reading, and I haven't like fully been immersed in any of them. Maybe this is good because I'm reading more critically than I ever used to. But I just wanted to point out some things that I really genuinely enjoyed about the story. The main one being the way that Irish history and Irish folklore and Irish mythology were brought into it. Seeing creatures that are rarely, if ever, seen in fantasy, like Merrow and banshees, was really, really exciting and cool. Seeing the Sheed and their different hollows and their different loyalties was also really interesting, though could have been developed and explained a little more. As someone who doesn't know too much about that particular element of Irish mythology, I was kind of waiting to be told why these loyalties were important and like what way they were divided, but it was kind of like you're dropped in the middle of it and you kind of have to have a basic knowledge of it before you can fully appreciate it. So I wish that was expanded on a little more, but it was cool to see it in the story. One more thing that I just want to mention in terms of the plot, and this isn't like a similar to Mortal Instruments complaint, but it's kind of just like a point of note that I think maybe should have been picked up on, was the fact that the angel spark, when it goes into Izzy, starts to take away from her personality and starts to, you know, possess her, so she isn't acting like she would normally act. But this happens at the very beginning of the novel, so you're kind of like being told that Izzy isn't acting like Izzy and Jinx is not seeing those parts of Izzy that he's always loved, bearing in mind that he has just met her, so how does he have these things about her that he's loved? Anyway, the reader themselves doesn't know how Izzy should really be acting because we don't know her, we've just met her too. I mean, it's the beginning of the book. The start, it's kind of like these little things, but it grows to be these bigger things. But the thing is, she's been acting kind of iffy from the start because the spark went into her at the start. So it's like she's acting unusual for Izzy, I'll take your word for it. It just felt a bit like an oversight in terms of the author or maybe the editor. And it was a little frustrating because it felt like you never really knew Izzy. I feel like I've complained about it more than I've praised it, but there were quite a few things that I feel like need to be spoken about because I can't just sing praises about it because it's set in Dublin, you know? And I want to, but that wouldn't be an honest review. So I have put a lot of emphasis on the things that stood out to me, and I guess more things stood out to me in a slightly negative way than in a positive way. I rated this 3 because it was a fun ride to go on a trip through Dublin and kind of weave in and out of those and see the different creatures of Irish mythology. That was really fun. But as a story standing by itself, I'm not sure if I didn't have, you know, my loyalty to my home country to like uphold it, I'm not sure how much I would have enjoyed it. Another thought that just came to me before I end the review is that like characters and creatures weren't described very often. Like a couple of things were, like the main character was and Jinx was and one or two of the creatures were, but every once in a while we'd come across a new type of creature and it just wouldn't be described. We're gonna leave the review there. It was an enjoyable story. It was fun to see a story set in Dublin and I did enjoy it. I think I've said that too many times. Let me know if you've read A.Crack in Everything in the comments below and if you enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye. Before I go, do you like my makeup? Do you like my makeup? Hope you do, because I forgot that I did it in waterproof, so it's gonna be there all day long.